I'm going to see if I can put a tighter camera focus into this little presentation here. Sort of condense it down, like a condenser. Pull the information into the one, right? The first speakerphone, the first eternal spirit of fire. Experiencing the eternal fire, which is the eternal, absolute, pure love. Yeah. And so I'm gonna couple a few things here by virtue of what I've experienced through others that communicate to us, and a video that I had done about Randy Keith, who has a beautiful channel up called RK Seeker of Truth. He's a musician, very talented, and he jumped on to the Kelonic science, the original founder's language, mathematics. Mathematics deal with templates, sound and light, celestial creation mechanics, and how this relates to the importance or the critical time in which we find ourselves in now, how that specifically relates to the Emerald Covenant, the round table agreements of the salvage mission and redemption soul contracts of why we're here and why we're in this planet. Because I know by virtue of the places that I've been, particularly in these islands, in the Hawaiian Islands, on the island of Kauai, the island of Oahu, the island of the Big Island, the island of Maui, are very powerful spiritual temples. And I know when I was over on Oahu, I visited a place that was right there near Waimea Falls, which was a cultural, historical place that you could go to see the original Lemurian, if you will, culture. So one of the things that I remember, because I ran into one while I was there who was working on a canoe and how they used to live, the traditional spiritual practices of how they lived with the great living oversoul spirit of Mother Earth, right? And so I mentioned him how my ancestral, ancient, spiritual practices of learning and working with children is to teach with a circle of light, holding hands and communicating through our heart, to experience what we feel through our heart at the deepest, most intimate emotional level of creation that we're all now sharing with each other to heal each other, okay, through a circle of light. And so the reason that's important is because when I was a child, I realized by virtue of when I came in, exactly when I was supposed to come in, and I had my avatar, Christos avatar, up and running as fast as I could at age 4. I acknowledge I'm on a spiritual battlefield. They're after the human heart. They're not going to get the heart because they want to break the mother arc, right? Which is bifurcation. Oh, they don't get the human heart. So you realize why this planet, okay, became like the last line in the sand. Okay, they don't get the human heart. That's a creative quotient potential of the innocence, of the purity, okay, of a child's heart, which is the essence. That's what they want. They go after the essence. So you understand the essence because I know Mama's essence. And I experience her essence very powerfully on the island of Kauai, Lemuria. Okay, so the Polynesian Islands as a nuclear chain, when I was there on Oahu, I was sharing with this Lemurian that I was with, okay, how powerful these islands are because there were people all over the multiverse that were coming to Lemuria for not only healing, but learning with their children. I never forgot that, okay? So I know how deep my ancestral spiritual roots go to the Yelani massacre and the Lemurian Holocaust, okay? Because I was there. We never forgot who we are, okay? Which is the purity of the essence, which is the purity of what I call the flowers of a goddess. So when you become one as the Father that is mated with the goddess, you become one with Sophia. That's the Christos avatar. That means we're equal unto all. That means there is no hierarchy. There's only what love is. And when you're experiencing what love is because you're on fire to create and you're a child, that is a very powerful child. That means you cannot control the spirit in that child. Because the spirit in that child is the spirit that is in the heart, which is the temple. That's the temple of the spirit and the soul that are integrated. So in order to bifurcate the soul and the spirit in a child's heart to be assimilated and thus integrated with artificial intelligence, they got to break the mother arc. Hence Andromeda, the mother galaxy. Yeah. And how the quarantine was put in place and why. That's what brings us full circle now. Yeah. And why, when Randy Keith talked about he was trying to generate a group of co-commitment or co-creation, and now has decided that he wanted to sort of withdraw within himself, right? And why that's so important, because as I mentioned before, over the last, almost 2 years, I've spent a lot more time just being with my Creator, the single point from which it all began, in order to do what? Experience the still point. Shut the motor off. The universe will naturally take care of itself. So start practicing the breathing techniques to slow everything down. Now we're back to Plum Village. And bless your heart, Ty, how much she emphasized about meditating and remembering who we are, of a magnetic moment, which is the completion of a circuit. We're experiencing what love is, experiencing what love is, experiencing what love is at the completion of every circuit. So we're experiencing the love that we are, that we share with everyone else. That's the first breath of a living flower. That's the seed and the grower that become one with all creation. We're gifting energy. And that energy is consciousness energy, which is what love is, because that's as pure as it gets. And that's a purified spirit, which is a purified soul, which is soul arc in a state of consciousness, experiencing being with the one, which is the all creation. That's who we are. That's why we're here. So I thought, well, bless your heart. You're going to spend more time going within, because that's where it began. It began within us, not out there. It began within us, within our own heart and soul. The still point, which is the exact center point in the eye of the first volcano, which is the first atmosphere, the first pressure waves. So when you're experiencing the entire electromagnetic spectrum being twinned as a twin mate, being an oversoul, our consciousness is the entire electromagnetic spectrum, which is full elemental command, authority to override any spiritual system, because we are experiencing eternity, which is the absolute pure fire, which is absolute pure eternal love that we experience through us. That means that the first one is the override authority, because it began with the first eternal crystal star fire. That's who we are. And that's the founder's language. And the reason that it works that way is because of the speed differential between language that doesn't work, known as babble, trying to reverse the flow rate of who we are, versus the form and flow rate of the original first creation. The speed of the one can do that. That's how what her name said, boy, you're carrying codes, brother. Well, that's why we came in here, was to override the beast system. In order to do what? Help release spirits, which are in all the molecules, everything that is energy, which is spirit, the souls that were trapped in here, in order to accelerate the healing, which is to clear the entire shadow body network interface with the universal and the galactic template. That's the truth of it. That's why we're here. That means that we honor the highest code of honor, which is to honor the first law, which is the law of circuits, which is the law of spheres, which is the law of one, because it began out of what love is. The first one. The first lover boy and girl joined as one. The Christos Sophia. That's the avatar that I'm running here, that I share with you what it is that I've learned through experience. So I have learned through experience there are a lot of different ways to practice spiritual practices, to remember who we are. And a lot of it is keeping journals. I usually always have one of these. that allows me to process a lot of what we're processing out that we want to get sort of rid of. We're getting to know ourselves better and more, and the relationship that we have with others, and the relationship that we have with our grand creator, the first creation sphere, and how much love we begin to experience in ourselves because we are rejoining, which is restoring and recovering the relationship that our spirit and soul have with the first one, the original one, the first creation, the eternal spirit of fire, which is the eternal spirit of absolute pure love. So we're having a communication relationship with the one upon which it all began, that we came out of. The firstborn star upon which all stars began, giving birth to stars. The first star that was giving birth to other stars. The image, the mirror, we're in the mirror. So when you're non-polarized consciousness being neutral, as in a neutron window, that means that when we're in observation mode, everything becomes clear to us, and everything becomes clear to us, which is called clarity, is because the signal that we're sending is a clear channel. That means that others are able to read the signal's intelligence of the first signal, the one, the EFFI field, a Manu Yana, a Manu era. So when Max Spears mentioned in one of his videos about androgynous, so I try to avoid using that word anymore, because this is how it works when I was a child being non-polarized. The words are sort of synonymous. It means that your consciousness as an oversoul consciousness, the entire electromagnetic spectrum, which is what we represent being non-polarized, which is pre-phase, is in perfect equilibrium state unto every other wave that we are dialing in, because we know how to run a radio operation, which is an antenna. That means we know how to frequency modulate our antennas in an AI battlefield environment in order to perform the missions based on the contracts, which is the Emerald Covenant, to honor the first code of honor, which is what love is, which is coevolution, co-prosperity, co-peace, because we know that when you have an eternal star that loves us all forever, from which it all began, there is always going to be more than enough for every unit of consciousness that is self-aware. There's not going to be any shortage of voltage. And that is basic logic. Because you can't ever put that star out, because that is the eternal spirit of fire. So they can't ever turn that engine off, which means there's always going to be plenty of voltage to go around. So that's how you know when you're in a fallen system. They're wanting your electrons. They're stealing our electrons. And so that's where we're at. So when Max mentioned that about being androgynous, because their perception of power is inverted, and he talked about how the male energy is supposed to protect the female energy, and it stands to reason using basic logic that if you're the seed side of the cosmos, you need a socket to plug in, which is the magnetic light. So if you're the seed side as the father side, the father arc, you're going to need a mother arc if you want to experience being one, which is fully integrated. Now you're in creation mode, because now you're experiencing 100% light. That's 100% love, 100% of the time. That's what we are. Those are guardians. And so when you're experiencing 100% of the light, 100% of the time, that means you're holding space, Max. That's what we do. We hold space with a full circle. Rainbow spheres. Yeah. So when you're holding space and we're grounded to mama's battery, that means we're booming it out. And we're bringing in the energy from another non-fallen matrix, which is known as a jumper cable, which is to help resuscitate the breathers on the planet. Because it's in freefall. So all you have to do is run a data analysis on all the data, and we did that. It's running a full data analysis on a motherboard. How long does it have before it's going to go implode? Right? So you know what a safe code is. You know what a fail-safe code is. Remember the movie with, what's his name? The guy was a famous Henry Fonda. That movie that was a black and white movie. What was it called? Fail-safe. Everything's all coded in all their movies. That's why a number of movies that I used to pick out for others that you can take little excerpts, like little holographic inserts, pull them out, put them together, condense them, and say, instead of spending, the next 20 years going through their schools to learn how it is they program children in order to implode through machine code learning, I'll pull a few little inserts out of their movies and we'll put it in a 30-minute presentation. And that's an enormous amount of information to be able to pull together out of the library from which it's all connected, and they're able to do that when you're in the room with that, because you're experiencing a master librarian. The one is the master librarian. That's the first librarian. So an ascended master is a master librarian. That means an ascended master knows how to self-organize its library, right? Based on one law. Love is a law. And that is a precise moment of a magnetic moment, which is experiencing pure love, absolute joy that's on fire to create worlds that are born out of what we are, which is what love is. That's how simple it is. Have a great day. We love you all. Be good to yourselves.